Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay, we're learning now the Hagada, and I want to go back to Manishtana. We spoke a little bit about it. The Rebbe brings that in some Haggadas, it just says ma, ma. Yeah, it's just, the Rebbe brings here. Some ancient texts state here simply, the child asks ma, what? Ma equals 45, right? Ma, what is it? It equals the Shem Hashem, Yud Ke Vav Ke, when spelled out. Yud Vav Dalet is Yud. Hey, or Hey Aleph, whatever. You spell that out fully, you get 45. So Ma is known in Kabbalah to be a way of expressing Hashem's name. Which aspect of Hashem? Because there are four different ways Kabbalah says that you can express Hashem's name. Ma, Ban, Sag, Ab. 45, 52, 63, and 72. Ma's 45. Adam is 45 too. Aleph Daled Mem is 45. So here we have this principle, this idea that the Manishtana needs to, it begins with the bittul, the humility. What? In other words, when you ask a question, we're asking questions. Why this night is this thing? Why not this? All these different questions, 4 questions. If you're asking with arrogance, it's not proper questioning. You need to ask with bittul, ma. And that's why it begins with ma, nishtana. In other words, normally, what do we emphasize? Nishtana. How is tonight different than other nights, right? So the emphasis is on the hishtanut, on the difference. This interpretation it's a different emphasis. Not the emphasis is on the hishtanut, the emphasis is on the ma. And if you have the proper ma attitude, the proper bittul, humility attitude, when you ask a question, then ask your questions. So I think it's a very important, it's a discussion point, especially at a Seder. How do we ask questions? There are times when we ask with an arrogance. There are times when we don't ask with an arrogance, but we're not asking with, like, please teach me. Please teach me. I know I don't know. And the Hagada is the Baal Hagada is alluding to this concept that this is the proper way to ask questions, including the questions, the 4 questions. The Rebbe has a very famous comment that I'm sure you've heard, but it's worth repeating. Why in the Chabad text is the first of the 4 questions matbilin, right? In all other texts, it's the chametz umatzah, right? Our question is the first of the 4. Why tonight we dip twice, and all the nights we don't even dip once? And the Rebbe says because the idea of matbilin is completely foreign as a halacha to the child. And since the purpose is to get the children involved, you want to first, zoom in on the most strange thing of the night. And the most strange thing is matbilin. So, for example, let's say mesubin. The 4th question. There's a whole discussion here, the Rebbe's Haggadah, about when the mesubin practice started, when it finished. It has to do with the Gemaras But so mesubin, you could see mesubin other times of the year too. People would eat in a relaxed way. But matbilin was completely new and different and strange. So it evokes by the child right away, hey, what are we doing here? And that's what you want. You want to get, you're like, what are we doing here? Reclining? Okay, Father, I've seen you recline other days. No big deal. It's not going to make me ask a question. But Matbilin is. That's one point. The next point that Rebbe says is because Matbilin, the whole idea is also associated with minhag. And a minhag is the most halacha, Jewish law is Jewish law. You have to do it. Do this. That's what it says in the code of Jewish law. But a minhag is like, who said, a community decided. Like you just said, the Hasidus decided. So a minhag also prompts question, right? Why do we do it this way? Your wife bakes ladder challahs Shavuos time. That's not, I don't know if it's a minute, but like right away, hey, why we have such a kind of challahs at the table, right? So the minhagim are also things that are different than the norm. So therefore, we begin with Matbilin. 1 second. Finally, I'm not going to go into it now, but in the sources that the Rebbe brings in this Hagada, there is a source for starting with Matbilin, okay? So it's not that Chabad just decided, the Alter Rebbe decided, because of the two above reasons that I gave you, and maybe another one, to put in Matbilin. There's a source in the Mefarshim, and in the Poskim. We don't paskim that way, you understand? The Rambam, I think, I have to look up all the sources. The Rambam, I think, brings Chometz or Matzah as the first. Yes, Moshe, what do you want to say?
So two things. One is, I definitely seen in another Chabad Hagada that listing of sources for the order of the Manishtana of how in Chabad it's listed. But I heard once, many years ago, in the name of, I didn't hear from him personally, but I heard it in the name of Rabbi Manis Friedman. They talked about how, when in a discussion, he was giving a lecture, and he was discussing about chinuch and about children having them to be excited about Yiddishkeit and so forth. He talked about how putting an emphasis on the minhagim. The minhagim are unique. In other words, minhagim teach, let's say, group, chug, how you want to define it. But an emphasis on this minhagim that's been special. That is he brought that out as like a focal point.
Right, and that's what I said earlier. Yeah. Okay, let's jump over now to the section Avodah Mayinu. So, we start explaining. We have the 4 questions, and as the tradition is, the leader of the Seder says, I heard your questions, and let me give you an answer. And we begin the answer with Avodah Mayinu. It says that the Haggadah should be said B'Koil Ram. It's brought down, I think even from the Arizal. It should be said in a loud voice. It doesn't mean you have to scream, but we say together Avodah Mayinu. First you say it. You could in Hebrew or English, whatever language or any other language. And then if someone has a point to say and the leader feels it's the right time and all that, you stop and you discuss. But the actual recitation of the words of the Haggadah should be, done in a louder voice, and it's nice. I don't know. I find it to be nice if we do it together, like we read together, like the Sfardim in Shul, and every tefillah they read together. I don't know. But, so that's Avodah Mayinu. So in the Avodah Mayinu, we say, therefore, we were released, we were liberated from Mitzrayim, And whoever tells the story is marbe or saper, which I already told you the word. Whoever increases in telling stories, hareze b'shubach. Now we know that the Kohanim and the Leviim and converts didn't partake in the whole process of the Exodus because they weren't enslaved. Only the regular Yidden and the converts were not Jewish. But nevertheless, we include them in this paragraph, and the proof is from the next paragraph. Ma'aser b'Rebbe Eliezer, Rebbe Yeshua, right? Here you have a Kohen, Levi, two Kohanim, one Levi, and one convert. Rebbe Kiva comes from converts. And others are Kohanim and Leviim. So that's the connection between the paragraph Ma'aser b'Rebbe Eliezer v'Rebbe Yoshua and the previous paragraph. In other words, someone will say, "Hey, I come from converts. Why should I tell the story of Mitzrayim tonight? My ancestors weren't in Egypt." Right? A Kohen, a Levi will say, "I'm sorry, it doesn't apply to me." So the answer is no, it does apply to you, whether it's because of the neshamas, whether there's arvos, we're all one nation, whatever the explanation is. But the follow-up paragraph, that's what I'm showing you. The follow-up paragraph is supportive of the concept that everyone gives praise the night of Pesach. Now, it says they were gathered at Bnei Brak. Of course, the old joke is that only in Bnei Brak would you have four rabbis going at each other. But be that as may, we're not even sure, is this Bnei Brak the same Bnei Brak like today? And again, I haven't done a study on it, but I did hear, over the years, that's completely lavdafka, but it does say Bnei Brak. Okay? And what happened over here? Let's for a moment look at what happened here. The rabbis, the Rebbes, these great giants are sitting and talking about the concept of Yetzias Mitzrayim. An entire night. Okay? I want you to picture this. They're up talking and learning and darshaning and farbringing and everything. The Achabo Talmideim, their students come, and they don't say to them, "Hey," at least it doesn't say it here, that, "Hey, we want to join the farbringen." They basically give them constructive criticism. And they tell them, if you Rebbes will continue your farbringen, you're going to miss the time to say Krishma. Higias man Krishma Shoshachos.
Didn't they already miss chatzos for eating the afikomen?
How do you know? It doesn't say. I don't know.
No. Yoni, there's no way we would assume that here. They're sitting and talking,
right?
Learning.
Yeah, and that's not number two. Again, you have to go through the sources. Are they all Bisman Beis Hamikdash? Are they all in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, that there was only one night? Were any of them after the Zman of Beis Hamikdash destruction, that you had already 2 nights? Okay, anyway, I'm just saying, you have to, I think there's a discussion about what I just asked you in the Rebbe's notes. But I want to go back. So the Rebbe has a very famous talk that it's important to know and to share. In other words, what was going on over here? The students come and give this criticism to their teachers, like as though the teachers didn't know it's light outside. It doesn't say they were shikar here, like, okay, they were immersed in Torah, but, in the morning they would say Shema. Why do they need the students to go and tell them it's Shema? The Rebbe brings out is at this point, listen to this point. He says that they were on they were the Rebbes. They were on a high level. From their perspective and their level, it was already day. In other words, the idea of night is darkness, questioning, dilemmas, problems. Day, Boker, represents clarity. For them, it was already clarity. They had when they were sitting and talking and learning and farbringing, for them, they had clarity. Clarity of Hashem, clarity of Yetzias Mitzrayim, clarity. The problem was their students are not at that level, and for them it was night. What happened over here? The dawn comes, it's almost dawn, and they come and they say to their Rebbe, Rebbe, guess what? We recognize that day is coming, light is coming in our level. Your level we don't understand. We're not at your level. Your level for us is dark, is night. But where we are, it's day. And here's another significant twist that the Rebbe has. And if you have impacted us, that by us it's day, then for you it's also day. In other words, if you are such a teachers and such a Rebbes, such a leaders, that you were able to touch the people who are lower, who should be in darkness, and we are now telling you where we are, we're not in darkness, we realize it's day, it's clarity, then all of you have what to be proud of, and say and know that it's day, it's clear, and say your Shema. Well, of course, this is not a literal interpretation of the words, but it does add an insight into the following two nekudas that to me are important. One is that teachers and leaders need to understand that their teachings and behaviors make a big impact on their listeners and students. And they need to take that responsibility. And, you could be a great teacher and a great leader, and you could be, in your own world, in a great world. But if your students are in darkness, then you're also in darkness because you haven't touched them. The second point is that when students and recipients and children and our offspring, they come to a place where in their world they're inspired, right? They're not inspired maybe like us, but they're inspired. That should also give us not just hope, but happiness and realization that it's day. Because it's very easy to fall into the trap, and I know that I have fallen into the trap, and many of my contemporaries, where you look at the new generation and you one of my friends sent a WhatsApp before the shir today. He's a mashpi in a yeshiva, and it's only 2 days left to the Zman. So normally he teaches them Tanya in the evenings. So since Bocharim have already left for the Zman, it was like 11 boys left. So he said, I'd like to take a survey, and how many of you would like me to give you a shir? I think only one said they want a shir. So he said, this is indicative of the times, at least in his yeshiva and whatever. And there's some truth to that. That's right. In other words, the bikush, the desire to have a teacher and have a teacher teach you and inspire you, and hey, I want to hear more from my teacher. It's going out the window, and more and more, and every whatever, in different chugim, in different ways. But at the same time, we have to assess properly the Talmidim and what we're dealing with today and what the world is dealing with. When we were in, whether it's university or yeshiva, we didn't have, 24/7 internet. And if you had to research, you went to a library, you took out a book or many books and you studied, and you know what I'm saying? That's not the situation today, as everything is almost right in front of you. So you could be morbid and say, this is a generation that is so far and doesn't. On the other hand, you have to see the mila, the advantage of the new generation and the people and what they're doing. And I don't know, I feel like you could put it into this paragraph over here with the Talmidim. It's a very interesting paragraph where, students come and criticize a Rebbe, one Rebbe, 4 Rebbes, giants, Rebbe Akiva, Rebbe Lezer, you're talking about here. And like, oh, my Rebbe doesn't know he has to say Shema. I got to go tell him he has to say Shema. I mean, come on. And I think that there's, many times a schism, and not there. Think there is a schism between the young and the old. Like the olders are the old ways, and the young is the young ways, and right. And we have to find ways of synthesizing, and each one to find the mila. So what I'm saying is that it's not that the young generation shouldn't be given and made aware and somehow inspired to know that there is an older generation and they do have value. The story with the Friedrich Rebbe, one of the Maspiyim in Lubavitch was known as Michal Beliner. They called him Michal der Alter, Michal the old one, because he was an old and blind man. He lived from the Tzemach Tzedek's times in the 1850s, 60s, 50s, earlier, and he lived into the Rashab, and the Rashab appointed him. And he was blind towards the end of his life, and they were paying him a salary. So they came and they said what are we paying him a salary? We don't have, we need for others, for the younger teachers. We should basically tell him to just go. We don't need him in the yeshiva anymore. And the Rebbe Rashab said, absolutely not. You continue paying him because for the Bacharim, for the students to see such a yid from the Tzemach Tzedek's time is worth everything. Now again, the youngsters probably still disagree with it. No, but the Rashab, as the founder of the yeshiva, he felt that this is important. So in other words, having an older person in a position, even if they're not maybe, teaching as much and giving them I remember in yeshiva when I was, a young teenager, we had a certain teacher from Vilna and then Shanghai, and he developed, I think, serious Parkinson's or something like it, and he taught us Tanya in when we were in high school. And we couldn't understand him well because of his health. But looking back, just looking at such a Jew, just looking at him, and I remember I used to hold him. I don't know what he had, Isser, maybe you would know the condition, but I would have to put my foot in front of his leg, and then he would be able to walk further. He would get stuck with his walking, and I had to put my foot in front of it, and then he was able to go. Is there? Do you know what is that Parkinson's?
Well, Parkinson's people do get frozen. They get stuck.
They got stuck.
But about having somebody else put their foot in front and to get them moving, I don't know why I heard that, but
I'm telling you what I did. I don't know what the condition, but all I'm saying is I remember holding him, and I look, so many years later, I have this, warm feeling in my bones, but I couldn't understand them. And he would drip. I don't want to go into all the. It wasn't pretty, okay? It wasn't pretty. But they didn't fire him. Till the end, till he passed on. He was employed by the yeshiva. Why? Because he was to have such a person just be seen. And again, he tried teaching us. It was very special. And that has to be part of this discussion. Because in general, as you know, everyone wants the younger stars. My mother-in-law, blessed memory, when she was younger in Australia, when she came with my father-in-law's yahrzeit is tomorrow. And, she was a very articulate, very, learned and educated, tremendous writer. She was the first editor of the English Neshei Chabad, before it was called the Yiddish Heim. Talented lady, a woman, and she would speak at the Hillel in Melbourne and a different group, right? And came back to New York in 1990. She was already, 60 plus. No one called her to speak. It's like, it was the same person, and she was, she lived till 96, right? So she had many years that she could teach, but that's it. When you start, your hair gets white and gray, and you can't move a little bit this way. So there's a whole this intergenerational issues that I see in this paragraph that's important, I think, to open up, and sometimes it takes years to realize, but this, I believe, is part of this paragraph. Okay, let's continue. Then we go, Rebbe Lezer ben Azariah, he says, Harei ani ki ben shivim shana. Of course, everyone knows, the Gemara says he was really 18, but he looked like 70. Why? Because he came out of Shiva, and he wouldn't have respect if he didn't have any white hairs, and so he looked older. And then he gives the discussion that Yetzias Mitzrayim should also be mentioned at night, and we have a discussion about that. And not only that, but it also refers to Yemei Chayecha, refers to the days of Mashiach. Next paragraph, Baruch HaMokim. Now here it's interesting. How many Baruch do you have here? Moshe? 4. Right? Baruch HaMokim, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shenazon Torah L'Ami Yisrael, Baruch Hu. So, really, so what's Baruch HaMokim? Baruch, blessed be Hashem. So the Rebbe brings it from the commentators that was the way you opened up. Like, the Ezra Hashem is Baruch, with the help of God. So in those days, they would use also Baruch HaMokim. So that's, and Baruch Hu. Baruch HaMokim, Baruch Hu. Blessed be his name, his place, blessed be he, blessed be the Hashem who gave the Torah. Baruch Hu. So you have 4 Baruchs. Then it says, Keneged Arba Bonim Dibur Torah. Now, normally the pshat is, the meaning is that the Torah speaks about 4 sons, but what the Bala Hagada is also saying is that the 4 sons correspond to the 4 Baruchs. 4 Baruchs, 4 sons. And there, I think there's a great lesson too. whether you have a son who's a chacham, whether you have a son who's a rasha, you hear that? Whether you have a son who's a tam or sheni de elisho, baruch, he's blessed. If Hashem gave you such a son, baruch. Doesn't mean he should remain a tam, a sheni de elisho, a rasha. Everyone has to have an upgrade. But baruch, but the Eibishter, when Hashem gives a person baruch, and the Rebbe's interpretation, which I'm sure you've heard of, just to mention it, I think goes along with this idea. Why is the rasha next to the chacham? Right? Who should it be? First the chacham, then the tam, then the sheni de elisha, then the worst of all, the rasha. The rasha is not at the end. The rasha is the second, the echad rasha. So the Rebbe's explanation brought in others for him too. It's not as chiddush, but that the rasha is also a smart guy. He's a chacham too, but he uses it for rishus. He uses it for bad things. So we place him next to the chacham, and we tell the chacham, it's your job to turn this guy around. Huh? What do you hear that? You hear that insight? It's not a negative one, Moshe. It's positive. You ask anyone, echad chacham, echad rasha, echad tam, echad shaliyah, it's like, chacham is the best. Rasha is the worst. Tam Elisha was like, The Rebbe is saying in a sense that the Rasha is also the best. Except he's the best in Shtuyot. So now you, Chacham, turn him around. Reach out to him. That's the point. Don't give up on him. And it's your, one second, Yisr. And it's your job, Chacham, if you're really a Chacham, if you're really a Torah Chacham, in other words, if the Tam would be next to the Chacham, and the Chacham would work on the Tam, no, he's a Tam. He's simple. Sheni de Elisha, it's not such hard work. No. You want to be a Chacham? Let me see you turn around a Rasha. So I'm going to put him right next to you. Yes, sir, what do you want to say?
I just saw a very interesting commentary in Rabbi Ramon's Hagada that the Rasha is very much engaged. You don't like the question, but he's engaged. Who's the one who's not engaged? Is the one who doesn't even know how to ask. You have to ask for him. He's the one who's checked out, not the Rasha. The Rasha's engaged. You might not like the engagement, but he's engaged.
Yes,
it's the one who doesn't even know to ask who's totally checked out.
Right.
You have to act for him.
Right.
That's very interesting. I hadn't seen that before.
Okay, but that's in a way that's the same idea of what the Rebbe is saying, just using different words and engage. I'm saying he's smart. The Rebbe says that Rasha doesn't mean he's a dummy. He's a chacham too, but he's using it for shtuyot, for rishis. That's one point. And so what I was saying is, I see it going together with the explanation, Menashe, that there's 4 baruchs who. In other words, the question is, how can you say the Rasha is baruch? He's a Rasha. The answer is because he's really a chacham, and he's engaged, as Issachar says, So now turn him on. Turn him on. Okay. Another thing is, and everyone knows this question, why does it say 4 echods? Echod chacham, echod rasha, echod tam, echod sheni de elisha. The word. What are we counting here? And what do we have to count for? What is the echod? The word echod is superfluous. It could say, Keneged arba bonim dibra Torah, corresponding to 4 children, the Torah speaks, and what? Chacham, Rasha, Tam, Sheni de Elisha. We can count on our own. So the explanation is, one of the explanations is, Echad Chacham. You have to find the echad, the unity, the connection to Hashem within Chacham, V'Rasha. And look, It doesn't say Echad Chacham, Echad Rasha. It says Echad Ve'echad Tam. Ve with a vav. It's a conjunction. In other words, the Echad of the Chacham, the Achdus that the Chacham has, the unity that the Chacham has in his relationship with Hashem, you schlep that into Russia. Ve'echad Russia. You should know that the Russia also has an Echad. And you have to explore it and find it. And the Tam. So that's why there's an Ve'echad by each of the four to tell you, and they all kind of come from the Echad Chacham. Because the Echad Chacham is like, Hashem, the relationship, the unity, and all of that. Talking about the four sons, the famous talk that the Rebbe once gave in the early years is there's a fifth son, but he's not even here because he doesn't even know it's Pesach, and our job is to bring him to the Seder, etc., etc. Okay. Oh, I went over. Oh, I didn't realize. Okay. I have another shir now, so tomorrow we'll learn more. Sei gesund. Hatzlacha.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye.